What stuff is working? I don't have any attendees, but it will look like we're live. Okay. And then, end when it's over. Okay, we're good. Thank you. All right, see ya. Bye.
Justin Cartier,
Oh,
I saw him a few days ago. He was definitely planning on being there.
I'm trying to remember if he was gonna log in. Or if he was gonna show up.
Cartier
Or Cartier.
Cartier en français.
I know you French folks.
Cartier.
Cartier.
I'm not actually sure how he says it, but
I don't know.
it's like the explorer, Jacques. High school.
Okay, so let's see. Thanks for your question. So it does look like he was intending to come. But he also has another meeting tonight, so
Yeah, he was supposed, that other meeting, I think he said started at 6 o'clock.
yeah.
And they've got a meeting in the council chambers, looked like a workshop.
Yeah, that's right. But he's here anyway, I see. Well, we have nobody watching. So
I'll stick my head in the hall just to make sure I'm not standing out there.
yeah, I just took a walk out there, but
Once I could hear if anyone was.
Well, I like all these upgrades,
yeah,
very nice.
yeah.
Looks like from the top of the window, there's probably 3 more feet of ceiling up here.
That's a little bit of a extra added daylight.
Ventilation. Electronics. Christmas lights.
All right.
Yeah.
And Justin, the only one that I recall specifically saying,
I have his number at the column.
oh, that would be good. So I did bring that. Did you say this one was clear?
Yeah, yours is clearer. Hello, Justin? Almost here. Okay, yeah, we're hanging out, looking out the windows for you. So we're not in the main council chamber, we're in it's like a smaller, the Paul Bunyan room, right? As soon as you come in on the downtown end of the building.
Okay. I'm not.
3 minutes. Okay, cool. See you soon. Bye-bye. They need a Paul Bunyan sign somewhere.
Right. There might be one outside. While we're kind of showing time here, obviously we'll have to cover this again, but this is the official map. And for our purposes, I've always found this to be very insufficient. Because it's difficult for me to say whether you're in a zone 1 or zone 2 on those borders. So I will tell you, I've started talking with City GIS. They make very good maps. And apparently they've gotten requests from other people as well. So they had done some work already. And what I was asking for, I'm just gonna pass these around, is some of the stuff that they have already showed. And they're trying to clean up, and one of the things you're gonna realize, I probably should wait for Justin before I get too deep into this stuff. But I'll hold off, but they started working on some proposed, but one of the things we'll need to do is we'll have to determine where those boundaries should actually
Yeah.
be. Because one, when this map was made, or whatever year that was, things were different, roads were different, properties were different. And two, because the map was so broad, it was just cutting across certain areas, whereas now we could say a certain property line or a certain road would be the definitive property line, and I think probably we ought to look at that and then ask that the city do a proper map. Now, they've done a couple things here. I'll pass these around when Justin gets here, but they've kind of cleaned it up and proposed this would be it, but they don't have the information that we just talked about, where exactly, what boundary lines they should be following. And then they've superimposed the map that we have here on an existing map to kind of show why it is confusing. And we want, our goal would be to clean that up a little bit, so I'll pass that around when Justin gets here.
Sounds good. What's it on? Or if he's there, he's hiding behind one of those big posts.
He'll be.
And I think he said one of.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi there. What are you doing? Welcome.
Yeah,
Jason Stewart.
Justin Carney.
Nice to meet you.
Apologize for my.
Oh, yeah, straight on.
Work. Me too.
What do you do?
I'm a carpenter.
Okay. Okay, you're well dressed.
Well, the kitchen today. Thank you.
Yes, I can,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this is just the city ordinance. Oh, no, this is the handout that they gave me that had the maps on it.
I'm just looking for a list of participants here.
So we've got a quorum. Cool.
Let me just start off and then kind of just let you guys do your thing, and if you need something from me, but I've talked a little bit offline about what brought us here today. I'll just kind of bring everybody up to speed, but my understanding is that the chief was always the city member of the committee. He's asked me to do that, and that sometime after COVID, he kind of got out of rhythm with the meetings, but they're supposed to be held the first Monday in May. At that meeting, we're supposed to pick a chairperson, who would then be responsible for calling meetings from then on out, depending on what the need is. So we don't meet regularly, it's just as needed. So one of the things I think we need to do today is pick a chairperson of the committee. And then they would determine the need for additional meetings as we go forward. I do think we have a lot of things to talk about today. I've had questions from the community that I had posed to the chief before I knew that I would be the person. And then Ray's had questions as well, and you may have as well. So I think there's a few things that we'll need to discuss. So does anybody want to volunteer to kind of start the agenda? I can do it, but why don't I get it started? So the first order of business was kind of rehash the purpose of the committee. I think that is important because one, it's been a while, but also so that we're all clear on where our role is. And in short, I'll say that obviously we're considering the zones and the ordinances for firearms discharge. And then we make recommendations to the council. So we're not making the decisions, but we're making recommendations on that, so. Appointment and composition of the committee shall consist of no more than 8. No fewer than 5. And, looks to me like the city will handle like the elections of the committee. So who's appointed to it? There is a qualification. At least one of the appointed members of the committee shall be a resident of Zone 2, as defined by subsection 113-2. And at least one appointed members of the committee shall, at the time of the said member's appointment, hold a valid hunting license issued by the state of Maine. And the duties are to meet the first Monday in May annually, for the purposes of selecting the committee chair, and thereafter meet as needed, call the chair. Make recommendations to the Bangor City Council prior to June 30th. Regarding any necessary changes in locations and boundaries of zone number 1 and number 2 described above, and recommend any ordinance amendments or other council actions regulating the use of firearms within the city of Bangor. Sponsor or conduct public awareness in hunter education programs as needed, protect the public safety in regard to the use of firearms within the city of Bangor. So that's our purpose. I think the best next option, if everybody's good for it. By the way, I asked city legal, like, do we have to follow the Robert's rules for meetings? And he said no. And that's good for me because I don't know them.
I do.
Okay.
It's just an offer.
But I think that there's some general guidelines that we should do. City legal has offered to attend the meeting and provide that where we haven't had meetings in probably 3 to 5 years, I'd say. It might be valuable to have somebody come over and just say, here's some things that we need to consider going forward. Wasn't able to get them squared away for this meeting here today, but I think that that's something we should consider doing going forward so that we have some general method of conducting the meetings. So we need to elect a chair, and I think that would be a good thing to do right now so that they can take over the meeting and go from there.
I'd like to nominate Ray as our chair.
Okay, I had a question. How many of you guys are on like other committees and stuff like that? I know you
I'm
are
on planning board.
planning board. Okay, so that's. I accept.
Any
Any other nominations for?
anybody dying to do it?
Been a lifelong goal of mine, but if you want to steal it.
Sorry.
What I'll do is I'll just hold it against you from here on.
Okay.
Whatever you have to do.
That works. Perfect.
This sounds like a perfect way to start.
Standard committee procedure, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll keep it in secret and just hate you.
A very mature approach.
Stealing my fun.
So no objections. So
All in favor of Ray being our chair?
do I get to vote?
All opposed?
That's one of the questions I would ask city legal, if I'm supposed to vote for those sort of things.
Yeah, your official term,
I
it's
guess-
life term is what it is.
Yeah, okay, so
I guess with 4 of us in attendance, if there was a tie, you'd be the tiebreaker.
sure.
Actually, that's technically what the chair will be.
So I live in zone 2, and all the rest of you live in zone 1?
Yeah.
Who's a hunter? Who's a hunter? Okay, so we've got our requirements right there.
Do you want to take over? I can brief you on 3.
You have the agenda, so I would say. keep
Oh,
it
yes.
going.
Do you not? I'll give this to you.
Thank you. Well, I have it on internet, but that's.
Gotcha.
Somewhere.
I was trying to find it in my email. Jay.
I should have brought some more copies for you, but, so item number 3, I did get a request from Mount Hope Cemetery. They have an employee over there who is struggling with gophers. And they've explored a number of methods for taking care of that issue. They're not many that are reasonable for them and or fairly expensive. And what they would prefer to do, which is apparently common practice for cemeteries outside of Bangor, is use pellet guns to mitigate that issue. So if you look at our ordinance for what a what our ordinance says, one, it defines firearms and specifically mentions pellet guns as being considered a firearm.
Oh, it does.
It does. So our ordinance does. And so that restricts them. And that was our first conversation. He says, is that considered to be a firearm? And so I pulled the ordinance and it did. So,
Has that been long since?
this ordinance has been, I want to say since 1992. Don't quote
That's
me on it, but
92,
it's been a long time. There's been no real substantive changes. I actually talked with Chief on this as well. He said they've done a few minor things, but no big changes in the past. So he would like to consider some options for him. And that will be up for you guys to decide. And I think that some of the obvious ones are, do we change the zones? Do we create a new, or again, we're only making recommendations here, but do we create another zone to allow for it? Should we create
Should we suggest to the council that maybe we remove pellet guns from the definition of firearms?
So that would 100% be a consideration.
I agree with that, Mike. That's what we were talking about earlier. That was what was ticking in my brain. And then, you and I were briefly discussing before we sat down was, just them letting you know that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That I think sounded more reason than permitting or keeping it as a firearm.
Yeah,
But-
it never doesn't meet my
No,
definition of a
yeah, the
firearm.
caliber is similar to a 22. I mean, 170 if it's a 177, but and I get your concerns as well. So in light of or in the spirit of trying to look at everybody's viewpoint, certainly some discussion to be had. But
So that would mean anyone in zone one could use a pellet gun legally, no restrictions? No 100-foot setbacks or anything?
So one of the considerations that I think that we need to consider is hunting is hunting and state law still applies to that. So it would still prohibit within, I believe it's 100 feet or it might be 50 feet of a road. I'd have to verify with state law. So you still would not be able to shoot or hunt within 50 feet of a road, a public way. And there will be no discharge of firearms, which I believe is also includes things like archery. And that's, I want to say 200 or 300 yards. Don't quote me on that. We'd have to verify. But my point on that is the rules on hunting would still apply. So you still would be, you would not, whether we change the definition or not, it would not allow for them to do anything that state law still prohibits. And so you still can't be within a certain distance of a residence, and you still can't be within a certain distance of a roadway, a public way.
when you spelled out here, there's already.
Yeah, so one of the things I think we ought to consider is make sure that this ordinance still is consistent with state law. Because I think for the purposes of, we can be more restrictive, but we can't give less restrictions, right? So we couldn't say, hey, in Bangor, you can shoot out of your truck, because that's how we do it in Bangor.
Right.
We would have to fall within, so I would have to verify, but I'd be a little bit, looking this over, I'm not 100% sure that this is still consistent with state law. So we would have to,
This ordinance exists or became into existence around the early 90s, right? So we don't know if that conflicts with.
that's right, I think there may have been some changes, and we would want to look into that, and honestly, that's an hour's worth of research. If I had a laptop here, I could actually do it right now for you, but, so that's one of the considerations. Now, this, so if we did take pellet guns off of the ordinance, it would not change those restrictions as far as where it's safe to do the hunting.
So you got guardrails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From an enforcement side of things, we get a little bit concerned about what the general public doesn't know the difference between a pellet gun, a pellet rifle, or a 22 or an AR-15. So we start getting into a little bit of hazy area there about what we're gonna start getting calls on. But we'll still go investigate it and we'll still handle it, the way we do any call. But it does create some gray area questions as far as the public goes.
So let me ask you this. This is the first time I've seen this ordinance. And I'm guessing I'm not alone in that vein citywide.
Mm.
So making a change to drop the pellet gun from that. Certainly, I don't know that it's gonna be, have that much.
That's something we're gonna do,
There we go. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think that fact gives a greater exposure to, well, all of a sudden a free for all.
Yeah.
But when you were alluding to earlier, when we first came in, we were talking about when people like to split hairs with how they conduct themselves, for example. Yeah.
Do you think it would be possible to say allow pellet guns, but only within that area of Mount Hope Cemetery, the Bangor section of Mount Hope Cemetery?
I think we can make any recommendation, we can do anything we want, as a recommendation. I think that in the urban area of downtown, it's probably best. Listen, we've had people walk around with rifles on their shoulders, they're not discharging them. But it does create all kinds of attention and we get lots of phone calls on it. So even a reasonable person who's simply target practicing with a BB gun and a soda can, it's gonna generate concerns and calls. So if we have an ordinance that endorses that, we might be asking for some complaints. And just to be clear, the police department doesn't have an official opinion on that. We'll respond to whatever the town feels is appropriate. But
I don't know that necessarily endorses it because the guardrails again are that, the ordinance says so many feet.
so that's hunting, right?
No, it didn't talk about just discharge in general, which would include.
Yeah,
I think the hunting laws are different. And I think there are laws that refer to target practicing as well. I'd have to look at that.
Again, it's just conversation, it's not a challenge on,
Yep.
I'm looking at it from a wider perspective, I guess.
It's just things to consider. The police department will respond to whatever you come up with, whatever the town comes up with. But it's just things to consider. It could generate some concerns in certain parts of town. But we do have an established map with 2 different zones. And I don't think you're gonna get a lot of calls in zone 2 about that type of activity. And
Specifically with the cemetery, I don't know what side you're talking. I know Steve and his daughter run the private side of it. Extremely responsible, extremely forthcoming. So I can't imagine it'd be willy-nilly the old Wild West in that instant, a car vote, for example. But I get your concerns on the, Joe Bag of Donuts roaming around, just having his way, whatever.
Yep. One of the things that, so you could look at creating an entirely new zone, a 3rd zone. You could look at changing the boundaries of zone 2. And
That's kind of what I was just looking at was just shift the boundary
Sure.
west just to, this side of the cemetery instead of the far side.
You could just swing it right over around the cemetery. The other question comes up is Mount Pleasant Cemetery is right smack in the middle of zone 1. Would they get the same ability to shoot rovers over there?
So that could be yet another option, is that the ordinance would provide an exclusion for cemeteries. For this purpose, so that's yet another option for you. One of the options we chatted briefly about when coming in is we could have, you could keep the zones the way they are, but it would require some sort of permit in zone 1. if you, if you wanted to allow for somebody to request a permit, they would go through whatever process, we would have some sort of criteria in place, you know, maybe it's something that's fits to a hunter safety course, the weapon has to be less than, whatever caliber or whatever, we would create, you'd create criteria to define a pellet gun specifically. And they might have to, I suggested that perhaps if we did something like that, we notify the PD so that when I get a call about somebody with a gun at the cemetery, that we are aware of it before something's happening. I will say that pellet guns, one of the benefits with them is they're quiet, so they're not drawing a lot of attention, whereas larger caliber firearms, 22s make a lot of noise, it draws a lot of attention, and 100% will get people looking. So, whereas pellet guns can be done pretty quietly without drawing a lot of attention.
Is a pellet gun powerful enough to kill a gopher?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. And pellet gun is just a CO2 cartridge?
Or air.
Or a pump. Yeah, it's either CO2 or you literally have to pump.
They have a single pump, you know, pull it. Stop.
Do we have a general consensus? Because you have another meeting to go to.
We do.
Don't you have a
Well, I thought
meeting?
you said, yeah.
Oh, tonight? No.
Oh,
I thought you were asking in general.
Maybe that was
That's
for
Tuesday night.
the other date.
Oh, yeah.
You would ask me, I like the idea of, just permit if you're a employee of that cemetery to be able to, use a pellet gun within the cemetery.
For
Kind of like an exception to the rule, so it's kind of like regardless of whether it's zone 1 or zone 2. And able to use, a pellet gun.
yeah, I like that idea too, a temporary permit for a specific time period. So then part of that permitting process will be notifying the PD that, you know, Mount Hope Cemetery has a, pellet gun permit from October 3rd till October 10th. For the purpose of hunting, a gopher.
I would imagine it similar to getting a fire burn permit.
Yeah.
And that's really the reason you're doing that with fires, or with one of the conditions safe to do it right now. You're not gonna do it in the middle of a hurricane. Two, you're notifying the agency that would have to come up and mitigate that problem. And I see it as a similar process.
Restricted to certain daytime hours. Or, well, certainly not at night, but they have to be daytime hours like.
I'd be curious to know if there's a benefit to doing it outside of normal hours, like are
Well, it's not-
more active?
They're not
before
nocturnal,
sunrise?
so gophers
Yeah.
aren't nocturnal, so it's not an issue, but if there was another type of,
Yeah.
you know, pest, for lack of a better word.
I do wonder, like rats or
Mhm.
mice, obviously might be easier.
Okay, so not restricted to a certain time of day.
So my question, my observation is if it's the cemetery that's, inquiring or wanting to be able to do this, then I would think the onus would be on them to pick up the phone and say, we're gonna be doing this. Rather than the permitting hoops to jump through, because again, I'm not knocking it, I'm certainly open to different things, but you know, responsibility, just let you guys know, hey, today we're gonna be doing X, Y, Z. The idea of permitting, can it be denied, there's hoops to jump through. I don't know, they're a business trying to run a business, you know, I'm not a fan of that sort of thing, but that's me personally, so. And again, it's a pellet gun. And they're not gonna be willy-nilly, they're just trying to mitigate an issue, that's all right.
So I would be willing to write that up as proposal. And then email it to everyone for comments to how to modify it. And then I'm not sure actually how to do the steps to get everyone to agree. Because we have 4 people who are not here. And then have that submitted to the city council, is where it would go next.
I believe it would go to city solicitor first.
Okay,
So let me ask you this, Jason, from a legal standpoint, so tomorrow, if they needed to do that, just calling the police department and letting them know that they need to handle that issue, that's not gonna,
As the ordinance sits currently, it
It
would be
prohibits them.
restricted, it would be an ordinance violation.
right, yep,
We personally don't have an issue with it, other than it would be a violation of ordinance.
and removing the pellet gun portion of that ordinance. That's everywhere.
Yeah, so that would be,
Yeah.
and that could be something too, you could say. Pellet guns will be allowed in these zones, you could say cemeteries, you could say zone 2, zone 1, whatever you want, and you can write it any way you want to. But that was the purpose of their call, was to say, what are our options?
How do we know they're not already doing it? Because
I haven't got any calls on it yet.
They're not.
I appreciate the fact that he's trying to do it the right way, and his request of us was, would you consider something that would allow me to mitigate this without an extraordinary cost?
It's a reasonable consideration.
Sure,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, not just the cemetery, but any
Right.
business, I mean, it could be somebody with a small
But you can't.
farm
travel.
within one of these zones,
Well, I think that probably in the city of Bangor, it may feel unusual, but in more rural areas that battle these types of issues, this is common practice. And we do have unusual safety concerns here because of the density of the population. But it is a normal practice.
Is there any issue with the like caretaker's house being residence?
If there is in fact a residence there, it would be, we would have to follow all the same rules.
Yeah, I'm saying like that,
If
like,
there isn't now, but not for that particular zone.
But even if there were, it's big enough that, yeah, beyond the.
right, no, just, it'd be one more consideration.
Yep, and same thing with roads that surround it.
Right.
Rules still apply to those, so, and he discussed that, we discussed that. And he knows that if we made the ordinance, he would still have some restrictions. But it allows him to do the bulk of the work.
shall I write it up and send it out?
Sounds
Do
good.
we need a vote?
What are we writing up and sending up?
But a general ordinance change to allow pellet guns to be used within the cemeteries after they have obtained some type of a permit. And certainly notification of police department when they plan on doing it.
Yeah, I'm still hung up on the permit stuff, but let me cook on it and, you know.
Yeah, nowadays, I mean, I think that might satisfy city
And
council
like-
also.
Why couldn't we just suggest that we change that to allow in for the employees of the cemeteries to be able to do that, but to leave out the permit?
Yeah, I just think a carve out again,
It would just, all you would simply do is say, in that scenario, is say, you can do it, provided you've done these steps. One, ensure that it's safe. What,
particular time, I mean, so I envision, for example, with Steve and his daughter now taking up the charge there. You know, they would pick a time and close it off. It would just be them and whomever they choose. I've known Steve for almost 40 years, and he runs a very tight ship. He's a wonderful guy, and he's very diligent about everything.
you know,
So as
they,
far as that particular cemetery, now the other ones I can't attest to because I don't know the city staff that engages in those, but
So you say Steve, he's like,
Steve Farrell, yeah, he's a wonderful guy. I think his daughter has taken over for him. Steve would be, I think, 5th generation now. His family's always taken care of that cemetery, and that's why it looks the way it does.
thinking of, as you were saying that, it kind of occurred to me, we had earlier discussed the time frame. People come to visit their family there during the daytime, we may not want to put restrictions on because they may prefer to do it in the early dawn hours or the, when less people are going to be there.
Yes,
So,
and they have an early staff, his troops start around 6:30. And I'm there almost every day, so you've got people there every day, all day long. There are certain blocks of the day where there's just no one there but the staff. So he may pick an hour, close the main gate for just an hour, put aside that, I just envision that. And letting you guys know on Monday from 3 to 5, we're gonna be mitigating our issues. Boom, you guys are aware of it. These folks are gonna be aware, his side of it is a private side. And he can do what he wants. He can close the gate, say, sorry, you can't have access until X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But he's super, super forthcoming. I don't know if you've ever met him, but you guys met him, take the time, but they're wonderful people and they are very caretaking about it. So I just see that carve out is working fine. Again, I can't speak for the other cemeteries. I haven't met. I know we just had a change of the sexton for the cemeteries for the city of Bangor recently, and they're trying to do some different things. Maybe a good idea to chat with them too, if they've got the same issues, then we could offer up what our solutions could be, and maybe that helps them as well. I don't know how the city feels about.
Do you know how much of that Mount Hope Cemetery is, the Bangor part of it, and how much of it is Mount Hope? Where does the Bangor part end?
So
I mean, like.
Good, just my understanding-
Home cemetery.
yeah, so years and years ago, Steve's family took care of all of it, both sides of Mount Hope. All of them. And then the city, I can't tell you when that was, the city came along and decided they wanted. And
Yeah,
they kind of took it away, and that's why, that's another drum I beat. You're running for office? Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
I'd love to hear about
But yeah, so if
you can tell the
got-
Bangor part, because the stones are all falling over.
Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, but. And that's a separate issue from what we're doing here. But yeah, so they had that and then the city took that and so we see what happened. You look at Steve's side, it's wonderful. They work on it every day and then not. And so, but they're still the same issues, the pests and all those things. But I just, Steve can tell you about every stone in that place and it's a wonderful history of it. The other cemeteries, my understanding is the sexton in charge is taking over the cemeteries and they want to start really bringing it back and doing different things. And I think that's going to be an issue for them too. So it's not just cemeteries. I know other folks in town want to try to mitigate that issue. But that's why I was asking you earlier about the ordinances. The average guy, the average person, they have no idea. So I guess my sense is you probably get calls now for people operating what they think is, okay to do and it's not. And so I'm just wondering how we as a committee could.
we don't get a lot on discharge. We get more for somebody's walking around with a gun.
Yeah.
And then when.
I'm not to know how we got.
Typically criminal behavior. So.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why I think the pellet gun shouldn't, my own opinion, Jeff, but I just don't think it should live on there, the pellet gun, and I get similar caliber, however. What they look like.
Well, then we're getting into kids' toys too, because what kids' toys look like.
Exactly. I can, yeah.
So under state law, pellet gun falls within firearms.
I'd have to research that to give you.
I don't believe it does.
I don't.
I don't believe it does.
No, cause I walk out
I'm
of
surprised to hear
Walmart.
that it's part of the Bangor City ordinance.
Well, that's, because what I was thinking was, are the employees both on the city side and the private side background checked? Because I was thinking, then you might run into issues of prohibited persons.
I don't think there's any restrictions even on a felon.
Well, but if this-
Is there?
But well, if this fall under firearms,
I don't believe there's a restriction as you're alluding to, and I understand what you're talking about, but I don't, other than Jason and his troops, I don't see. Like, I don't see a public works guy walking around with a handgun on his hip.
no, I just, you know, I don't know. with
Yeah,
the
yeah,
private
and-
employees,
right,
you know,
Yeah, I understand, I
background
just said,
check.
yeah, it does that or does not constitute, I do what I'm
Right.
saying, yeah.
Right.
You wanna put a pellet gun in the hands of a guy who's now gonna get pinched for.
Yeah, I was thinking like
Yeah,
the possible issues.
yeah, I think most of the city staff, city employees are background check.
I would think the city staff would, I just wasn't sure about like the private side.
So I know they do, I don't know if they do it with Jason and his guys, as far as, like, for example, driving record, OUIs, that sort of thing, insurability. I know I've asked the question in the past with some city council members, Dan Trumbull and those guys, like, our insurability as a city, you know, do we have a guy behind the wheel that's not supposed to be behind the wheel?
Oh, right, I guess.
And at first Dan thought I was splitting hairs, and then when he asked, he came back to me and said, question. Okay.
And I'll just throw out my initial issue with the idea of dropping pellet guns citywide is juvenile crime. Because like you said, you can go in anywhere and get them. And we already have quite a bit of, you know, juvenile crime in the city, and you cannot get restitution for businesses that get damaged by kids.
But again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, not disputing, not
Yeah.
trying to directly dispute what you're saying, but if that was a resounding issue or a potential resounding issue, that's why we've got Jason here.
It's a pretty serious issue.
Would he, oh, no, I get the kid crime stuff, but I'm saying specifically a pellet gun in that instance, I think, I just don't think it constitutes as a firearm. Now, can I hurt somebody with
So
it?
by your, I found a state definition of a firearm. Firearm means any instrument used in the propulsion of pellets, shot, shells, or bullets by the action of gunpowder, compressed air, or gas exploded or released within it. So that would qualify as a firearm.
Yeah.
I don't see it in the hunting laws right here listed specifically, but this is a different orientation. This is what you may hunt at whatever time,
Yeah.
et cetera, whatever.
So by state law, they would consider a pellet gun to be a firearm.
Really?
So
But I can walk in the.
to your
Walmart
point, a person would have to be legally, so a felon obviously,
Right.
be in possession of a firearm. So, but I don't know that we need to go, I mean, if they're restricted by state law from having a firearm, then I don't know that the ordinance has to go too far into it.
And that wouldn't necessarily be like an issue for us, but it may be more like if we were gonna go that route, giving, you know, the private side of the cemetery heads up like, hey, you might want to background your checks if your guys, if you don't already background check,
Oh.
just to make sure you don't have someone with
He
a
does, I
domestic
can't attest to the
violence
city's.
conviction. Yeah,
He's good, yeah.
you know, just as a heads up, just so that they're not running into issues over a pellet gun with gophers, you know, just in case.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking,
Yes.
just trying to prevent any
No,
of
I-
it on their side.
Yeah, I get it.
Because I mean, we see, I work in the district attorney's office, so I mean, we see a lot of this.
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
So when I write this up,
Another job I don't want.
Yeah,
you guys make whatever major changes, whatever. Because the more you talk, the more stuff there is to go into it, so.
Well, I think if you're capturing what we're talking about, throw it against the wall, then kind of play with it and come up with a way forward.
I think just the two easiest solutions would either be just an exemption for Mount Hope Cemetery, and if another cemetery wants one, they can apply and you can kind of go from there. Or just move the boundary, just, you know, to the,
Yeah, that wouldn't help Mount Hope Cemetery though, because that's flat smack, that wouldn't help Mount Pleasant Cemetery, they're right in the middle of town.
So,
No,
Mount Hope is a private cemetery. And then we have I think 5 other or 6 other cemeteries in the city that are city maintained. So those are gonna be our candidates for the necessity of what we're talking about in regards to pellet guns.
well, are they all asking or just from Mount Hope? Cause that's, I thought it was just from Mount Hope.
Mount Hope was who reached out to me and who brought this question and got us on this topic for the agenda. Yeah. But I've not been, nobody else has inquired. Now, that may be that they had that discussion years ago and just resolved that was changed, but or maybe they found another way to deal with it, I don't know.
Right, Well, and that's why I was focusing on Mount Hope is, if you move the boundary and then if another cemetery here is, they're able to do that, they can bring it up and we can go from there.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea too, the exemption from Mount Hope Cemetery. Where they're the ones who are bringing the issue, then we don't have to do a blanket change for all of the cemeteries. And certainly, take it as a case by case basis. If somebody else is having issues, we'll meet again and speak on that issue.
right. Right. I think if the cemeteries are aware that there could be a quote unquote exemption. Contact the
Yeah,
police
they
department, or
might.
city hall, or public work, whatever that may be. I think that's who they operate under, public works, the sexton operates under the director of the public work. But if they know that's available to them, maybe that's a situation where they haven't tried to mitigate that issue. Because they not felt prohibited, but it's kind of prohibited for them to, but if they know there's an exemption, they can just have somebody go and do the thing.
But I would hope that it would come to this committee and say, we think it's a good idea and we would like to be included. Because we're talking about cemeteries, but there might be another one, like golf courses, like say,
Exactly.
we have the same issue.
Exactly, yeah,
It's things that we're not thinking of, but
yeah. Well, the transportation museum, he's got quite a footprint there. They do have those issues because of the water traps and stuff. And maybe they need to mitigate that. I guarantee you some of them old fellows over there would love to get out there and do that. But, we want to city of rules and laws and stuff, we gotta operate within that, so.
one of our favorite responses to people who are unhappy with the law is, we agree with you. You should tell somebody who can change the law. That's not us.
That's gonna be you next, right?
God willing.
Yes. Should we move along?
Yes, sir.
How much, do you think we need to do? You listed number 4 to review firearm. discharge.
So a couple, if you don't mind, and there was a couple things that I wanted to discuss real quick with that. One, this is the most current map legally by ordinance. This is the map. I do think that in this day and age, we probably ought to have something that is a little bit more modern. This is literally what appears to be a photocopy of a photocopy. So the folks in the GIS department have attempted to take this and put it in a more modern form. I'll pass this around for you to look at. But one of the things that you should look at is the fact that these are based on property lines and roads that some of which don't exist anymore because they're so old. So one of the things when I talked with the GIS folks here at the city is they said they're having a really hard time knowing where to draw, from start point A to point B, because they don't follow any specific things. It might be incumbent on us to make a recommendation that either they align them with current property lines or roads that are existing. Also, there's new developments out there that are clearly not a place for firearms discharge. However, the laws on discharge of firearms still apply. So if you're so close to a road or so close to a residence, you can't do it even if it is in zone 2. So that might take care of itself. And so my suggestion is that we ask that they update the official zone 1 and zone 2 maps to a more modern and something that can be found online. So you could actually zoom into your property and say, all right, where am I? Can I hunt here or discharge a firearm here? Whereas this is not something you can do. I've done this, I've had in the past, had some duck hunters asking me where the line exactly was. And I said, well, this is the best I've got. And I would not advise you to do that out there. But I couldn't say for sure. It would be nice to have something where we can pin it down a little bit better.
So in regards to that, requesting someone to generate that for us or in general.
Yeah.
Are we making a request to the council or are we making a request
I think
to
the council
or another?
So one, we would need a map that accurately represents zone 1 and zone 2. And then once that's done, GIS can put that in a definitive, but we would need to clear up some of these ambiguous boundaries. Well, not necessarily, that could be a council thing.
Okay,
They could do it, we could make a recommendation on But I will tell you that if you look at this closely enough, this is ambiguous. And there are, when I say we, the city probably does need to clean up. Some
100%.
orders here.
This is a roadmap to hell to me. I can't
Yeah.
even
So
know where I sit.
one of the things that the GIS department did do for us was overlay what they believe this map shows on the more modern GIS map, and you can see that when they put this on top of an actual GIS map, then things don't line up the way they should. So he has that one there that you can kind of take a peek at, and it doesn't even follow roads in some places. What we would be asking for is a map that accurately reflects the zones. And we may need to help, the city certainly will have to be more definitive on where exactly those boundary lines are.
I think it'd be nice if we could. Superimpose it over like the parcel.
So that's what this is here, this map right here. But because they're pulling it from a photocopy of, that's 20 years old
Yeah.
or more.
So a copy of a copy.
Yeah, you can see that it doesn't match up with an actual like satellite map.
Yeah, because that's what I was looking at.
They really should follow road.
Yeah.
Or property lines. As best as possible, wherever possible. I think there's one area over by the bog that it cut across the bog.
Yeah.
So there's a space in there. That was the one that Duck Hunter was insisting that he could say on that side. You do what you want.
I'll be seeing
We
you
get
later.
called, we're gonna have to, we'll make the call on the spot, but I hope we agree with you. So,
Yeah, let me get my summons to
yeah.
work out.
A fair amount of that land is owned or controlled by Bangor Land Trust,
Mhm.
and they have their own set of policies too.
And that is true. So one of the things, and I think the city ordinance does allow for private property owners to have their own rules. So they may allow for, but I don't think that's our concern. We simply say if you're within the city limits, these are the rules, and then it's no different than me if I was a property owner of Bangor saying, I don't want anybody hunting on my property, that's my call. Yeah.
The land trust goes by zone 1, zone 2. And if you're on their land, I mean, you can still hunt on zone 2. You have to fill out an application, specific application for that. So these are their policies.
So that was the reason for that item on the agenda is there is some ambiguity about where exactly these zones are, and I think that it's time to bring that up. So and we have the technology to be very precise with it. When we look at property lines for property disputes, ED, it's good to like within 6 inches or better. There's no reason why we can't create a map that the city can't create a map that is more precise in showing these zones.
Got a typo there. Was it state statutes?
Oh, yeah, and that entire thing was done by GAS.
No, I was not.
Here as well.
Well, on this end,
Yeah,
it's-
so it's-
no, that's a statute.
That's
On
interesting.
there,
Yeah.
that's statute.
Somehow we missed that.
Yeah.
That's all he was trying to do was duplicate this in here.
Yeah.
That's curious how that would happen.
That changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah, statutes. Wonder if that's one of those like Grammarly things where they're like, oh, you clearly meant to say.
Yeah. Autocorrect.
Yeah. Still more accurate than my voice to text when I try to text my wife. So that was the reason for that item on the agenda. I think that when we're trying to make decisions, the least we can have is good tools to help guide on that. And for the purposes of providing clarity to the public, that's an area I see as good use of improvement.
Yeah, I completely agree.
How would you want to determine where the line should be? So like somebody driving around the city with a version of this or one of those And, looking at the roads and say, yeah, I think I'm on the correct road, and yes, there's a bunch of houses here, this should be zone one.
So, that's part of the reason why I wanted that to be further down the agenda. Is because you guys may very well say we should change the zone to allow for that issue, I hope.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna do that, then this would be the perfect time to do that. If we're not making that type of change, I think that probably the first step would be making the recommendation to the council that the map needs to be updated and clarified, and they may turn around and ask us to do that. And at some point, we would probably, or the council at minimum would need some sort of public input on that. Because there may be properties out there where people are like, I don't want to be in zone one, I want to be.
Yes, I know several properties right on the line that want both ways. They want to be in zone one and they want to be in zone two, and their neighbor is in the other and they're in the other.
Mhm.
There should be some kind of process for them to request to be moved one way or the other if they're the property owner. I know a gentleman that owns 12 acres on Kenduskeag Avenue. It goes right down to the stream. That wants to be in zone two, but it's, a couple houses away from zone two.
Beautiful stretch of land.
Yeah, for sure.
I know some property owners in Bangor just want to be able to hunt on their own property. And I'm certain that there are going to be people that don't want any sort of hunting anywhere near them.
For sure.
Interesting.
Sleek is good.
I don't know.
Right foot or left foot.
It's not detecting that we're doing anything.
No, but no one's on there.
Well, the only thing with it is I do believe that
It's,
Legal requirement.
it's.
people can go back and review it later.
While you're fixing that up, there another.
Well, I don't know that I'm.
It might be because it's coming up on 6 o'clock or.
Yeah, just-
Oh, yes.
Just after 6.
So with that in mind, should we adjourn? Should we try to, I don't have the ability to fix this, so,
Yeah, the additional steps to raise awareness, that really, I don't know that we have to take that up today, because a lot of
yeah.
that's gonna change with everything.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
It would make no sense to educate people
And then change it.
before we change everything.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I agree with you. Once we kind of have a better plan, then we can say, hey, look at the things that have changed recently.
the question that I had from Lieutenant McHugh, might be Sergeant McHugh, Sheriff Department, is a jurisdiction if he is bow hunting in zone one, which I want to say that was allowed, so I had to look that up again. Is that Bangor PD jurisdiction, or is that game warden
So-
jurisdiction?
This is a question that comes up quite a bit. We both have jurisdiction in there. So they're a state agency. We have agreements, just like with state police. State police doesn't come and work Bangor. We don't go work the interstate. But with things that are specialized, like truck weights, we don't do truck weights. We don't have a need to do truck weights. State police's trucks and weights division would do that. In the same manner, the warden service specifically would handle hunting violations. And we would probably get the call, but we would stabilize the situation and defer to them on that.
Because he is a bow hunter and he lives in, well, he lives in town, so.
Yeah.
Zone one.
We work together pretty regularly with the warden service, and so they frequently punt to us on ordinance. We would enforce any ordinances. They don't care what they're only doing state law. And it would be unreasonable to expect them to know what VZ does it this way, Bangor does it this way, Hampton does it this way. It would be too much for them. So if we had a zone one, zone two type violation, Bangor PD is gonna go out.
Can you defer the portion of, that would be a game warden function? So if there's multiple issues, you would.
So there,
You would cite for what year?
that's right, there absolutely could be an overlap there.
Okay.
But for example, let's say that somebody somewhere in zone one found a deer and wasn't violating any laws on like close to the road, too close to a resident, and shot it. There's nothing in state law that says that they couldn't have done that. Now, we could look at, if you're in zone one, it would be really hard to do that without having a house in the background, or, so we could look at some unsafe, firearms handling criminal statutes, right? But they wouldn't be interested in that, because if all the hunting rules were followed, but it was in the wrong zone, they don't care. So we would handle that, because it's an ordinance-based hunting violation. But if it's simply you're out of season and you're shooting a grouse, we don't care at all. We would just hunt to them on that. And we actually work together on pretty well on a lot of stuff. I used to call them at night all the time.
I find those guys to be very important. You had a
I love.
young fellow that was on the police department. He's now, I think he's now a warden. Maybe he's a sheriff.
At Bangor,
Yeah.
we had one that went and came back. We were very happy. He came back. We were very disappointed when he left, because he was a great police officer. He was there about a year. And he called up one day. I think you guys would take us back on 100%. We would have. And,
Yeah.
he missed being in street cop.
Hmm.
And we're very happy to have him back. So
I
we've had a few that went.
I met another one 2 weeks ago, and I meant to stop in and talk to Mark, but the young guy impressed the hell out of me. Just super cordial, very professional, courteous. Wasn't. I mean, sometimes you guys aren't, no pun intended, I'm the guy to get a lot going on. This
We're
guy-
not always as polite as I would like them to be, but.
Well, I like
A lot of it's.
the community policing attitude that I got from that young guy. I was impressed with.
Yeah.
Some guys are just, the busier, the talk on stuff, but
Yeah.
he just, he took the time.
Some guys have been doing it.
And was that?
It's sometimes a little focused on why they in protection. So
That did it.
I have two quick things to say.
yes.
Then we need to walk out. Bow hunting is not in any way regulated by the ordinance, chapter 113. It's not, the wording is not in here anywhere that I can see.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear about archery and bow as being part of that.
I agree with it. I don't see, I mean, bow hunters have to be within, realistically, a very strong bow hunter would need to be within 60 yards of their target. And very clearly know what they're doing.
35.
Yeah, if he's,
You're not taking a shot unless you're
Well,
within 35.
Yeah, I've never done it, so I don't know.
Okay.
I have heard that people that are extraordinarily strong can hit a target at 60 yards.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm not that guy. I can't do it at 20 or 5. So,
I teach archery at the PCCA.
okay.
But I'd have to stab the target with the arrow. Be about as good as I can get.
So this is the main expanded archery deer zone for Bangor and Brewer. So I'm not sure what expanded archery deer zone is, but it's all Bangor Brewer.
yeah.
So
I see. They're essentially encouraging it because you can't hunt deer in Bangor. There's a higher deer population there. It's not being controlled. So if you're a bow hunter, you get additional deer by being in those expanded archery zones. I still can't get them with a rifle, so I've not even considered it. So.
yeah. The other thing I find over here, Bangor discharge prohibited, and there's a sentence in there. The firing or discharge of pellet guns, rifles, or pistols of no greater than 22 caliber or shotguns shall be permitted for the sole purpose of providing for the protection of livestock or crops from predators or vermin. That doesn't quite cover us with gophers, but it might be.
With vermin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's considered vermin.
They're vermin.
Yeah.
Provided, however, that no firearms shall be discharged or fired within 300 feet of a dwelling or public way. So there's still those restrictions. But according to this, if we read that, they would be allowed to do that.
So that's Bangor ordinance.
Yeah, the Bangor that's
So it's almost as though it's
already in
what's
place.
been thought of
which is that under the firearms section?
under firearms, the firearms definition for what's a firearm. No mention of bow hunts in there, but a little below there's that exception for control of predators or vermin.
Vermin,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it looks like we've got an exception in place for them.
so that really begs the
Just
question is,
which one?
do we even need to change anything? Because reading that, I would know, so that's accurate. Radio code that was? That is, 113-2, which is firearms, C1. So reading that, I would say that that already allows for what we're discussing.
So maybe just a simple courtesy call, so you guys, so when you do get a phone
Well,
call, you'll be, oh, yeah, we know, and this.
Yes. I will tell you that based on the ordinance, my interpretation of it, I will call them back and say, I believe we can do it
here.
but yeah, I agree, as a courtesy to us, so that when we get the call, that there's a guy, we got.
So that's a simple request, I mean, that,
Yeah, and there's no requirement, but it's just to avoid problems.
but your phone call will
Yeah.
alleviate.
Yep.
All of it, just,
That actually would take care of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if you've met Steve and his daughter and the family, but
Just talking on the phone. Yeah.
just salt of the earth, really nice.
So then that brings the question, would we even suggest a change? Now, the other thing that you could do is suggest a modification in the language so that the language reflects the exception.
Maybe put that a little more to the forefront, so.
Yeah. That's right.
So let's say the folks on city staff are looking to mitigate the same issue, I'm sure they're talking with Steve in other areas, but maybe they're not aware, maybe they've interpreted it as they can't when they can.
Well,
And they would be first,
did up Dylan about 3 minutes ago, so.
but they would be first and foremost to call you guys anyway, hey, on Monday, we're gonna be doing whatever.
And yeah, we always appreciate a phone call, you know, it reduces panic, and, feverish, knee-jerk reactions.
It's just best practice.
It is best practice.
Well, again, we're a community, we should be able to communicate with one another and, you know, not that you're demanding, because the police department's demanding it, but it does
No,
alleviate a little.
a quick little
You got-
email from the lieutenant saying, hey, just so you know, Mount Hope will be doing this on these days.
Yeah.
It'll go like a long ways. Yeah.
And that gets, you guys do handoffs from shift changes, right? So,
Yeah, so my emails generally go to the whole PD, so they all get it, but, I generally try to have a conversation with the patrol commanders who are doing roll calls and saying, hey, FYI. We got a, pause on parade today, and, Mount Hope's gonna be out at 10 o'clock today doing some gopher mitigation. And it's just part of roll call, briefing them on what's going on today, so.
Are you gonna give them a call? Should I give them a call?
I will, because I gave them bad information, so I feel like I should fix it. Just like the car crash and our guys were wrong about the other day, that I gotta call the guy on and say, hey, sorry about that, but we have a different opinion than we did before, so. I think when we mess something up, we should own it and fix it.
sure.
You guys are all welcome to call, but, I feel like I should.
Sure.
So
Start
what-
with you, let them in.
What is a vermin?
The pest. Not me.
Yeah, that would open it up a lot.
Yeah, I don't like the neighbor's dog, I think.
Vermin, AI overview, noxious or objectionable animals such as mice, rats, cockroaches, and flies. That are
Squirrels,
considered
chipmunks.
pests, that are considered pests because they are common, difficult to control, spread disease, damage property, or prey on game animals. The term's definition can vary by region and context, whatever. We're talking vermin,
Yeah. Yeah.
by my interpretation.
Yeah.
So that's always the game is, we always say, well, first it starts with our opinion, and then it goes to what the district attorney says, and I think we're all on the same page on this, so.
Now, that definition could apply to when I see a juvenile. So-
Yeah.
The common theme. I just did look up vermin in state statute and I don't, it doesn't have a definition, so. I think it's open, to our interpretation, and certainly, he's gonna be most concerned about what is the police department thinking. Cause that's gonna be the first phase, and, I'm not worried about it. So I think it's pretty clear. So. And had I read a couple more paragraphs further, I would have told them the same thing back then when we first talked.
They're extremely destructive over there in any cemetery, they undermine the stones.
So my first 5 jobs were working on farms, and we had a full license. Because of a cow or a horse steps into one of those holes, you are talking about a real problem. And maybe putting an animal down, and so it was encouraged. It's and we're obviously not worried about, cattle out there, but people still step in holes.
Oh, yeah.
We are worried about that.
Especially the ugly section of the Bangor part of Mount Fulton.
Yeah, I gotta get on another. It's a travesty. Look, I found a stone the other day. It was
the Bangor portion.
so Mount Hope goes State Street to Hogan Road, right? So if you're driving that way, everything on the right, well, I'm sorry. You'll see the gated portions, which is still Steve's on that side, but when you get beyond that, the larger portion, you can tell the difference. As soon as you see the stones over and the place hasn't been mowed in a month. That's the one the city's taking care of. No, I'm knocking the city staff. But anyway, I found a stone the other day. Guy was in the Civil War.
What a shame.
And there were so many tractor strikes on that thing, tire marks over it, they hit it with the blades. It's like, really, dude, you can't go around it. They don't weed whack, they don't trim anything, they don't upright them. Well, it's laborsome. I mean, I've done, and it's, again, it's,
I've done 2 over there.
I've done. But, and cleaning them and that sort of thing. There's a whole art to it, there's a whole process, there's a whole chemical process, and you can't just willy-nilly it. And then the veteran stones are just flat stones that sit almost to the surface of the grass. But they are, I found one that was just almost shattered with mower strikes. And it's like, they're there, just go around them. But you're paying somebody an hourly wage and they really don't give a hoot, and the priority is, anyway, that's not the story, but the gopher holes and stuff are undermining a lot of the stones, and that's why you see some of them over, it just undermines the base. It's under, every stone out there has a base under it. So when they fall like ours, so.
Do you know, which department is responsible for mowing?
Public Works, yeah, and they actually have so the city sexton would be, the sexton of any community is the one that controls the cemeteries or has most information in the cemeteries. And he's the guy that would be able to, through Public Works, the Public Works Director is the overseer of all of that. And I hadn't had that chance, having 5 minutes to go talk to him, but. Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of help, need help over them.
Go to your next meeting.
Maybe we were still here.
Few minutes with you.
Sure.
You don't have time today, but